if you
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A God Shift. I'm your host, Shayna Rattler. I'm so glad that you're here, but before we get started, I would love if you would do me a favor. So, wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at A God Shift, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I know that there's a lot of people that want to do their part to uphold conservative values, and everybody doesn't know where to start. So, the more times that these episodes are shared, the more people that can be equipped with the tips and the tools and the strategies that are discussed here on the episode. So, thank you in advance for being willing to share. I'm going to read my guest bio and we're going to get started to what I know is going to be another great conversation. My guest today is an award winning broadcast journalist with more than 35 years of experience. He's a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who deployed to Iraq during the global war on terrorism. For his final assignment, he served in the Pentagon press briefing room alongside all major news organizations. He has also interviewed top defense officials, such as the Secretary of Defense. I'm happy to welcome to the show George Maurer.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you're here. So, you are an expert on the topic that we are going to discuss today, and we're going to be talking about critical race theory. And I don't know a lot about it, but the things that I do know, I know that the information that I've heard is not consistent. So I think a great place for us to start, George, is if you'll just define what is critical race theory and kind of like its main principles.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems. And actually, that's why I wrote this book, because there's so much conflicting information out there. And people who have genuine interest or concern, it's hard to find good information. So, really quickly, critical race theory is not the same thing as ethnic studies, as you may have seen out on the internet. Ethnic studies is the healthy, positive learning of one's culture, leading to self confidence, self awareness, all the things that one needs to be successful in life. Critical race theory is features a relentless focus on only our worst moments to foment negative racial tension in between children.
Mm.
And it is a horrible, horrible thing. The more you look at it, the uglier it gets.
And so if you distill it down just like to layman's terms, like how would I describe this to somebody that I meet on an airplane?
Sure. Well, just to give you an idea, there was one parent who took a picture of a critical race theory lesson, and their child was in kindergarten, okay, 5 and 6 year olds. And they were told, under the guise of freedom, they were told to explore these 5 sentences, and I can never remember all five. I'll get four out, but it's whites have more than blacks, whites oppress blacks, whites harass people of color, and when you are in a war, you must fight.
Mm.
Okay, now I don't know if you put a group of adults in a room and of different races to have that discussion. I don't know if the adults would have the emotional maturity to not get upset about this whole thing. Now imagine what it's going to do to 5 and 6 year old children. So, but basically, what critical race theory teaches is that all white people are racist, American society is racist, that people of color really have no chance of leading a successful life in this country. It's all stacked against them. And if you happen to be a white child in the classroom, you are racist, whether you know it or not.
My God. And so how does this affect the educational system and the impact that it is having on these students?
Well, first of all, imagine yourself being a student of color, being an at-risk student of color, okay? And there is a class called African American Studies that should be an ethnic studies course, which would increase interest in school, in themselves, in their lessons, which might inspire this young at risk student to enjoy school and put some effort into it. But critical race theory is telling that young child, this school is here to keep you down. You have no chance. So now, instead of perhaps finishing high school, perhaps the child gets involved with some bad folks. Perhaps he gets a young girl or is the young girl, they get pregnant, et cetera, et cetera. And there are things, South Carolina had an advanced placement African American studies course. And it was a 2-year test project. And they decided to not push forward with it. No, we're not going to do it. And they never said why. But at the same time, and this is just the last week or so, at the same time, there was a new bill going through the South Carolina legislature, which said any course, they would not fund any course that teaches one race is inherently oppressive over another, one race is superior over another, one race should feel guilty for sins of the past. And my suspicion is that bill discouraged them from pushing forward with that particular African American studies course. And imagine all of the children who need that most. And now they just lost it because critical race theorists, they had to infuse the course with their oppression, marginalization, social justice, systemic racism. And when you put those things in there, you're taking away this valuable educational tool for all students, but in particular our at-risk students.
And so I'm curious, like, where did this come from? And in your opinion, why is it even here?
Well, it is at its core, it is a Marxist ideology. Okay, Marxism has been working for a long, long time to take out capitalism around the world, to take out free countries around the world, democracies, republics like ours. And so this is just their latest tool to install Marxism around the world. What they're working for, what they've always worked for since the days of Marx, is to create a one world government where they control everything. I mean, Red China is the example that they're trying to go towards. But I mean, the goal of the Soviet Union was to always install Marxist countries everywhere around the world. Red China is doing the same thing, but on a more subtle way. They're kind of infiltrating economically as opposed to militarily, the way the old Soviet Union, they installed Marxist puppet dictators like in Cuba, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and countries are still falling for this. People are still falling for this. Venezuela voted for a Marxist government because they had one of the best economies in the Americas behind the United States because they have great oil resources. They have a number of resources and they were doing fine. And then someone like a Marxist convinced them that the oil companies were taking advantage of them and they weren't getting their fair share. Install a Marxist dictator and they'll fix everything. 2 years later, they're killing their pets to eat. They're shooting the dog because they have nothing else to eat. And so, but that's who these people are. They are going for a one world global Marxist government. And if you want to look at it through the eyes of Christianity, that sounds like the perfect tool, institution to usher in the New World Order and the Antichrist.
Yep. And it's interesting, all of the different tactics and agendas that are in place that all roads lead back to the
Yeah.
exact same thing. We're kind of
Yeah.
led to believe, many of us, that it's only if it pertains to sexual orientation. It's only if it pertains to COVID. And it's like, no, the things that are happening before our eyes and behind the scenes, all of those roads are leading to the overall goal of having this one world order.
Right. And if you look at even climate change, if you look at climate change, they had that Paris Accord that President Trump said, no, we're not going to do it. But the thing is, like the carbon credits, the United States had to pay for virtually everything. Red China is, I think, the second or first worst polluter in the world, and they were required to do nothing under this treaty, not one thing. And so and they tell you, oh, it's about climate. It's not about climate. It's about destroying capitalism so they can usher in Marxism, totalitarianism. I consider socialism and communism and fascism, it's all shades of the same thing, where you
Correct.
have an overpowerful government who is brutal against their own people and controls them in ways that are just evil. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no other way to say it. And so that's where they're going. And you're right, gender identity. I mean, all of it. And I'm someone, when I meet someone who is gay, for example, I know what the Bible says about being gay, but you know what? Jesus also says that he accepts us for who we are. He loves us for who we are. He will take us for who we are. And I believe that if a gay person decided to give his heart to Jesus, Jesus would happily accept it. And it's not my place to judge him on whatever makes that person gay, because we don't know. I don't know. He doesn't know. Those are just the feelings he has. But Jesus loves him anyway. And you know what? I got a lot of things wrong with me, and Jesus loves me anyway. And so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. George, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what can be done to shift some of this foolishness. I don't even know what to call it other than that. We'll be right back. God is commissioning women leaders to uphold Christian values and change the course of history for his glory, and to mobilize other women to blaze the same trail. Want to know what type of kingdom leader you are and learn specific strategies to impact change based on your type? Find out by going to kingdomtrailblazerquiz.com right now. All right, welcome back. So I have George Maurer here, and we are talking about critical race theory and the impact that it is having on children. So, George, I have a 27-year-old son at the time of this recording, and it seems like every week I hear about something else that makes me grateful that I no longer have a child in the school
Yeah.
system. And so I'm
Yeah.
curious, for the parents who are listening to this, on one hand, I know that they're like, oh my goodness, one more thing that I have to think about protecting my child from. And so, from where you sit, especially with the extensive research that you've done and the opinions that you have on this theory, how can parents fight back?
Well, the simplest thing they can do first is, and my book has a number of suggested ways to fight back, but the first thing they can do is go to your child's online course descriptions. Most schools now have their curriculums out on the internet, so you can go and read them, and go and read the class descriptions for the classes that your child is in. And you're not going to see the words critical race theory. Most schools have removed it, but they remove the words critical race theory, but they leave the content behind. And then they claim we don't teach critical race theory. So, but what you're looking for are the words oppression, marginalization, systemic racism, social justice, and when you see those key words, those key phrases out there, your child is being exposed to critical race theory. And there was a school, the very first school that I looked at, Riverside Unified School District in California. And, I proved they are teaching critical race theory. I won't go into it too long, but they said they weren't doing it. But when I looked at a PowerPoint presentation about their ethnic studies course, 4 of the lesson objectives had the words critical race theory in the title, and 11 more alluded to critical race theory objectives and principles. And when I emailed the school and said, "Hey, why do you teach critical race theory?" And they said, "No, we don't. Please go to our social studies curriculum to look, and you'll see for yourself." And I did look, and I found oppression, marginalization, social justice, but I did not find the words critical race theory. So that's the first thing you can do.
Yeah,
And
real quick,
the
George.
second thing you can,
So how do they explain this away? So if I'm a parent and I'm like, hey, what is the reason why my child is being taught whatever it is that they want to list it at? They're presenting this under the guise of what?
well, they tell parents that they're trying to get past America's racism.
Mm,
And again, their position that is America is the most racist country in the world. All white people are racist. The system is designed to keep people of color down in this country. It is institutionalized. Every major corporation, whatever, they're all designed to keep people of color down. Now, I still haven't heard a good explanation. Okay, here's one textbook, and this one textbook is supposedly designed to teach and lead white students to excel, but at the same time, it's designed to keep students of color down.
mm.
I don't know. I still have not heard a good example. It's all pretend. It's made up. It's complete fiction. So, but I'm sorry. Ask your. I think I got off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No,
Can
you
you please
didn't.
ask your
I was
question
asking you,
again?
like, how can parents fight back? And the reason why I thought that
Yeah,
was important is because I love the fact that you're like, you may not find it spelled out like this, but it may
you're
say,
not gonna.
even if you're in a conversation with a counselor or a school administrator or at a school board meeting, I wanted them to be able to to be able to identify,
Yeah,
like what are some of the things that they're going to dress it up as to make it seem
right.
like it's something that's important so that you can know what's really behind it.
Right. And now one of the things they may run into is they may run into a teacher, principal, school board member who the parents will say, you know what, I don't want my child to learn this. And they may try to say, sorry, mandatory, nothing you can do. They need us to graduate high school, which in California in the year 2030 is actually going to be true. They've required this ethnic studies class. It's a 1 year requirement, just like math, English, science. But there's a good chance you're going to talk. If you say, I don't want my child in this class, they may try to tell you that it's mandatory. Make them show you where it's written down. There was one parent in North Carolina, same exact situation. I want my kid out of this class. Teacher said, "Sorry, can't not, nothing we can do about it." Principal said, "Sorry, nothing we can do about it. Mandatory." Went to the school board. Mandatory, nothing we can do about it. Show me where it's written down. And so, oh, it's right there out on the internet, out in this curriculum. The parent went and looked, could not find it anywhere. And eventually he did win, but they will throw stumbling blocks at you, hoping that you will run out of energy and time.
George, you've talked a little bit about your book. So, what is the title of the book, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, the title of the book, I'm not big on cute titles. I like titles to say
Just
exactly
be
what they
clear.
mean.
Don't be clever, just be clear.
Exactly. And the title of the book is Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back.
Mm,
And basically, again, it's it describes what critical race theory is. It provides parents a place to go where they can get straight answers on critical race theory so they can understand it. But then it provides little tips on what to do if they run across it in their child's school, how to talk to the school board. If you talk to the press, there are talking points that they use against you. So we want to use them again. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. Let's steal what they do and use it for our purposes.
yeah.
Just how far this is embedded. The Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, went on The View and said, we don't teach critical race theory in this country. And yeah, at the exact same time that he said it, the education department was creating a brand new education initiative that was chock full of CRT. When I read it, I did not see the words critical race theory, but I saw oppression, I saw marginalization, I saw social justice, I saw systemic racism. And so, I mean, the teachers unions are all on board for this thing. They created during one of their conventions, they called critical race theory a an appropriate way to defend race or to defend anti-racism in this country. And then at the same convention, they claimed that there's no critical race theory taught in this country. So I mean, you get all these conflicting messages, and it's when you looked it up, you said, well, it's kind of hard. Yeah, it is. It is difficult to find out. And again, that's why I wrote this book. But it gives parents tips on what to do if they run across it.
One more thing that we have to arm ourselves with, parents. So, George, I know people are going to want more of you. What's your social media handle in case they want to follow you there?
Well, again, avoiding cute little titles. My Facebook page is titled Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer. So it should be easy to find if you type it into Facebook. And what I've done there is I've opened it up to, if a concerned parent has questions, please follow me. Please ask me questions. I want to help you. That's why I wrote this book, to help parents. So if you have a need, please go out there and reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Now, I've had to, as you can imagine, um, I have been called some very horrible things on that page. And so I've over the last couple of days, I've installed a new policy where if anybody says anything hateful or racist, I remove them, I block them. It has changed a little bit, and that's the one thing to keep in mind. These pro critical race theorists, they say some of the most racist things you've ever heard in your whole life. They pretend
Ironic.
oh, we're fighting racism. No, actually, you are the most racist person I've spoken to today. But what I've also done with that page is I go out in the mornings, I go find the latest news stories about critical race theory, and I'll post them there on a daily basis. And I'll have a little comment of my own just to say what I think about this particular thing. And the story I posted today was actually about Israel, where this one author said that the next thing is pro-terrorism. Where the teachers unions in Massachusetts got together, and there's this one person who's in charge of it. And on his social media, he defends Hamas constantly after they went into Israel and slaughtered 1,200 people. And I mean, we can have this conversation, but why, again, when things don't make sense, they make perfect sense, but you got to look a little deeper.
That's right.
And so why would you, when you're discussing terrorism, you put this person who defends Hamas all the time? It doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense because the teachers union in Massachusetts supports terrorism,
Yeah.
not America, not the best interest of the children, not the best interest of the teachers. And you got to understand, there's a lot of teachers out there who are good teachers, a
Yeah.
lot of administrators who are good administrators, but they're being overwhelmed by this stuff many times. And they're being told, you will do this or you're going to lose your job, And so there are some good folks out there, but just again, keep your eyes open. If you come to my Facebook page, you'll see the latest updates, and it can be overwhelming. I get that. But maybe stop by once a week, just read a couple of stories. But if you have any questions, please ask me. I want to help you. I'll be more than happy to take a little bit of time out of my day to help you get past this.
And where can they get the book?
The book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And again, if you search just for critical race theory, it should pop up in the top 10. If it doesn't, just critical race just finished critical race theory in your school, how to fight back, and it should pop up. So,
Awesome. Well, everyone, please share this episode with every parent, every teacher, everyone that you know that has a child or has access to a child, because here we are, yet one more thing that we have to be concerned about. But that's why this show is here, so that we can make sure that we're advancing um, the right things in the world and trying to get away from the things that are just flat out ridiculous.
and one of the tips I have in my book is to seek out like-minded parents. Don't do it alone. Try to find other parents with the same outlook on this thing, the same morals, the same principles. You are stronger together than you are individually.
Very good. So everyone share this episode. George, thank you so much for being here today. Everyone, I hope that you will consider going back and listening to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.